What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in. This is Tom Hickey from 2020 Media, and you are listening to NBT Bank's On the Scene podcast. Reach over 250,000 readers of the Southern New England Jewish Ledger, weha.com, and West Hartford Magazine, live 24/7, 365. Thank you for joining us, and remember to support not only our guests, but our presenting sponsor, NBT Bank. Be safe. Be well.
Thanks, Tom. So we were on radio. I'd introduce Tom as being on the other side of the glass. So Tom Hickey is the president of 2020 Media. He brings Best of West Hartford to West Hartford every year for the last 9 years. This year will be our 10th anniversary. The tastes of different locations inside of West Hartford. So Elmwood and Corbin's Corners and Blueback over the years. That's been 2020 Media production, as well as West Hartford Magazine and the Jewish Ledger. My name is Bob Carr with weha.com. I partner with Tom and Weha. So Weha includes Tom Hickey, Kosa McCarty, myself, and Ronnie Newton. Our guest today from the Ballet Theater Company of West Hartford is Stephanie Dattellas. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having you with us.
Nice to be chatting with you, Stephanie. It's great.
So just a quick, give us a little intro about yourself. Why your background, why you're in Connecticut, and then your web address, so we make sure we get that in.
Sure. So I moved to Hartford area about 6 years ago now. Grew up in Syracuse, New York. Have been a dancer since childhood, like many dancers. Started when I was 3. Went on to perform professionally and had an opportunity with the Ballet Theater Company to become the artistic director. And previously I was working for Syracuse City Ballet as their ballet mistress and company manager. So it was something that was very attractive to me, understanding what it would be like to make the decisions on my own and work with a team. And here we are, 6 years later, celebrating our 25th anniversary season, which is really exciting, and a lot of triumphs. And of course, some interesting hurdles along the way, as many businesses have faced over the last several years. So I'm very passionate about the arts, really excited, and looking forward to the season we have ahead, as well as being part of a really robust community who is supportive of performing arts, and happy to be here.
Great. So one of the things I was going to ask you about, and I was just there on a Friday night, was the Up Close program that you put together. How did you come up with that idea, and what was the background for that?
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. Those of you that don't know, Bob is a big fan of Ballet Theater Company and has been a wonderful supporter of ours for many years. So it's always nice to talk to a ballet patron and fan. But Up Close started as an idea to introduce ballet in a new perspective. Most of the time you'll witness ballet from a large stage in a venue like the Bushnell, where you're seated, at minimum 20 feet away from the stage. At most could be 75 feet away from the stage. So you're seeing ballet from a perspective of formation and lighting and scenery, and you don't always get to witness the expressions or really hear the sound of the dancer's breath or see their sweat or see those moments that happen in between a mistake or off stage. So the idea of Up Close was to give a new perspective of the art form, for people to feel as if they're really part of the piece that is being presented, so that they can understand the physicality of ballet as much as they can enjoy the beauty and the artistry. And I think, it was something that I wasn't sure how it would be received by our community, but I think has become, a performance that many people look forward to because they get to witness these incredible dancers, 2 feet away. And they get to hear the sound of their breath and the sound of their point shoes and see them, quote unquote, prepare in non-existent wings. I think it opens up a very different perspective of ballet and really what it means to be a ballet dancer. So that was the impetus for creating Up Close. And I hope that it's something we can continue to build on as we progress as an organization.
Where do you do that, Stephanie? Obviously, unlike Bob, I've never seen that. So if it's up close, in person, it must be in a smaller venue, or?
It is. So we actually do it right here in our studio. So we have a pretty large space in West Hartford. And recently we added a 2,200 square feet studio space that is just kind of an open canvas. So a large marley floor. There is a carpeted area, high ceilings, beautiful natural light. And we turn that space almost into a black box theater. So we'll bring in lighting, we have a black curtain, we'll bring in chairs, and we'll seat the audience members right as close as we can to that Marley dance floor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat. And has your location moved? I'm sorry, I should know the answer to this. Is it still over near Home Depot? Is that where it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we're still over near Home Depot. We share a space with a lot of fellow West Hartford businesses like Russell's and Lifer and Knockout Fitness and Floral Studio. And I think that's also something we really enjoy here at Ballet Theater Company is we have that community space within our own building. And, we work together as businesses. We hire Russell all the time for some of our gala events and Sandy for, centerpieces. And, but yeah, so we had this other space, and then that space became available right before COVID hit. And we were really at a time that we needed more space to accommodate our class schedule and our rehearsals. And so we took the space on and so grateful that we did at that time because it really helped us navigate the pandemic. And then since grow into an organization that hosts a professional resident company who's here, 5 days a week rehearsing during the day. And then our student body is here at night and we're all here on the weekends rehearsing. So it's home. It's for a lot of us. It's almost sometimes our first home, but definitely our second home.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, this is the marketing guy in me, Bob. I just have to say this. So I don't know if IPA beer is the thing for the ballet audience, but we really should try to hook up New Park Brewery with the ballet and come up with our own beer. So that would be
an idea.
I've seen those lines when they launch and they introduce a new beer, and there's thousands of people, lining up. Is that Jefferson Avenue? Lined up all the way around. It's crazy. It's like,
yeah, we could. That's such an interesting idea. Almost, yeah. I wonder if there's a way while you're waiting, come and see a performance, or let's head over to New Park following Up Close and grab the BTC IPA, special.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. All right, we'll get on that afterwards.
That's a good idea. I like that. Performance and drinking. It's always a good idea.
Yeah.
So Tom and I were discussing a little bit yesterday. We and I both seen ballet. Come to it from a different area, a different perspective. How do you build an audience? How have you built your audience over the last few years?
I think it changes every year. I think ballet has such, how do I want to say this? Because the way ballet was founded, and it's an art form that was started by white elite for white elite. I think, as we look to today's culture and we look at, ways that we can improve really in humankind, I think it kind of stems from what do audiences want to see, what is relevant, but also trying to find ways to still preserve the traditional art form of what makes ballet what it is. And I mean more so of the technique and, the artistry of it, but there's stories, new stories that can be told within the art form. And for me, it's been a lot of understanding that ballet isn't just one thing, that it really is, it's dance, and dance is universal. But ballet is probably one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most difficult art forms, because it really stems from, you get to a certain point in your dance career, and then you enter a new part of your dance career where you're learning a new technique on pointe shoes. And then from there, it's the countless hours of training to even, get on a stage or be in a company. And for BTC, we started as, an ensemble. So maybe the rep then isn't really conducive for today's audience, but I think there are so many classic storybooks that Disney has taken into their own hands that are still relevant today, like the story of Sleeping Beauty or the story of Cinderella. And maybe it's not the exact same story, but figuring out how to incorporate storybooks for families and to attract young audiences so that they can grow an appreciation for the art form. Then there's, art and music, ballet and music. Music is such a big component of our art form. So how can we include, a pop artist? Or, for example, I grew up with Prince, and that was the music that my dad would play when he would drop me off to my dance classes. So I'm creating a ballet for our end of the year gala entirely to Prince music, not with a storyline in mind, but to highlight Prince and his really eccentric and really cool quality. So I think the short answer is, how can we use ballet and collaborate with other art forms or other organizations or other mediums to attract audiences to experience ballet in different ways, where it's not just you're going to see Swan Lake and it's a very traditional classic production, but you can also see ballet, and you're listening to Prince music and it's a little bit more, I don't know, modern and different. That's a very winded answer to that question.
Cool. Do you think, Stephanie, that that's what has made you relevant? I mean, I loved what you said. I think when you started, you said something like, "I think it changes every year." I feel that way in our business. We used to put together, media buys and media plans for people, and they would last for 3 years. Now we're lucky if they last for 3 weeks. It's crazy.
No, and I think it's really about relationship building. I think we all experience that in every capacity of our days. Is, I think for any performing arts or any art form, the community building, the relationship building, and finding ways that we can collaborate maybe with a hip hop company. It's not ballet, but we still have the same underlying goals or the same passion of, moving our bodies. And how can we create something that could attract two different audiences and bring awareness to two very different art forms in a meaningful way? And we did that with our Nutcracker. We partner with Studio 860, and my Mice Battalion is, break dancers and hip hop dancers. And it has become one of my most favorite parts of our show. I think it's finding and building new relationships so that you can cross promote and you can create larger audiences, not just for your own organization, but for others. And that creates a better community for everyone. So I really think it's about relationship building as much as it is about seeing what our audiences enjoy today and taking that into consideration, but also the educational piece. A lot of what I like to do is inform people of what it really means to be a ballet dancer, because I think, everyone has their own perception, but it might not really match what it means to be a ballet dancer. Or, there's things that we find from our audiences of, their perception is really interesting, in figuring out a way to use that in our next show or our next program in different ways.
Do you guys have plans of moving beyond Hartford?
Yeah. I I think, you know, Hartford is home, of course, but there are so many other communities that could really benefit from having ballet in different capacities. So yes, the answer is, of course. I think Connecticut is a wonderful, robust art state. I think there are different communities that would love to see our work and that we'd love to share our work with. I think that is a question of time and resources and, building an audience patronage where we are able to, as everybody else, afford to do that. Because we are a nonprofit, and one of the biggest hurdles in any nonprofit is funding. And as we are all finding, it becomes limited more and more every year, especially post-pandemic. So yeah, I think broadening our audience to the state of Connecticut would be great, and definitely in our strategic plan later down the road. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that after talking to you previously about going from the University of St. Joseph to Belding, and then looking beyond that, so how did you end up doing that? That was a goal you set for yourself when you joined as artistic director. How did you get from, I don't even know what size University of St. Joseph Auditorium is, to the Belding Auditorium? What was the transition there, and how did you make that happen?
Kind of steers back to Tom's question about, what we choose and what's relevant for audiences. And I think understanding that at the time, a lot of our patronage was families, and more so, women and children wanting to experience ballet, or families. And we chose a rep that could build ballet theater company's presence. So when I first joined, the first performance I choreographed was Cinderella in the spring. And that was our first full-length ballet in the spring. And then from there, we did Sleeping Beauty, which is another storybook ballet. And then kind of that was really the catalyst of building a patronage of, oh, wow, here's a ballet company doing really wonderful work. And we're able to not just see the Nutcracker, which is, such a classic, quintessential production in every ballet company, but we're also highlighting other stories of classical ballet. So that was definitely, I would say, the strongest point in building our patronage in hopes to move to the Belding. The other is just chance, taking a chance and just, doing as much marketing as we can to, share our story and, get people to want to come and see it. What makes Ballet Theater Company's production of the Nutcracker different from other productions of the Nutcracker, or what makes Ballet Theater Company different than other ballet companies in the area? And I think for us, we have a resident roster of professional dancers who are earning a biweekly wage, and we're the only company in Connecticut that is offering that. So our dancers have moved this year from California, South Africa, Seattle, Maryland, Massachusetts. So we've brought in 5 dancers that are, hail from all over the country, and they're coming because, one, they're interested in the work that we're doing, but 2, they're able to earn a steady wage. And I don't think that we're, at the place I hope to be. I would love to see a company of full-time dancers, but it's really educating the public of, dance is a profession. It is just as grueling and tough, if not more, than, other day-to-day occupational jobs. And I think that has to happen, as we grow, because that's always kind of a stigma that performing arts has. It's a hobby. Well, no, we enjoy it. We're passionate about it, but it is just as hard work as any other profession. So I think that's the other piece, Bob, is what I was trying to say, is the educational part. The rep, taking a chance, leap of faith, and then educating our audiences about who we are and what makes us different than our competitors, I guess you could call them, but also, we're a community. So I don't like to really say that either.
Mm-hmm. And most importantly,
Not
Stephanie,
too
too,
much.
that's right. You're a school, right? So anyone listening right now who may have, a child or a friend or significant other or whatever, they can quote unquote enroll and be a part of it.
Yep. So I like to call us a trifold. We have a trifold mission, 3 parts. It's our professional company, which puts on the beautiful performances you see at the Bushnell or in our studio for up close. That includes our professional dancers, and we bring in guest artists from all over the world. But then the other component of our mission is our school. So we offer classes for ages 3 through adult, mostly in classical ballet, but also includes jazz and contemporary. And yeah, they can come and enroll at the school, and it's, we have open enrollment. So it's something that we don't have a hard deadline. If somebody realizes, in November that they have, a dream of wanting to learn ballet or jazz or contemporary, they can come and join. And then the other part of our mission is our community program. So we also partner with other organizations in the area, like the Miracle League of Connecticut, and offer an adaptive dance program twice a year. We partner with the Boys and Girls Club to offer dance training at a lot of their site locations. We partner with Hartford Performs and offer an abbreviated performance at the Bushnell for our main stage. We offer a sensory-friendly ballet of our main stage. We do school tours, and we tour to resident communities. So we do a lot of community enrichment, as well as, our typical performance schedule and school training offerings.
So the Sensory Ballet, I find that interesting. How did you come up with that, and what was the impetus behind that?
So when I first started with Ballet Theater Company, I had come from a place where I had learned and earned a certificate for dance therapy for those with disabilities or exceptionalities. And I realized that there wasn't a program in Greater Hartford. And so I contacted Mike, and it was kind of the right timing, because he was looking to add a dance program for the Miracle League, because they offer, if you're not familiar with the Miracle League, they offer baseball and swimming and, biking for mostly children, but adults as well with disabilities. And so it was kind of, the timing was perfect. We got together. I worked creatively. He worked logistically, and we created an adaptive dance program that was so successful. The first year we had over 80 kids sign up. And after having this program now we're going into our 6th year, last year, Mike and I, sat down and talked, and I said, it'd be really wonderful if we could include this type of programming in affiliation with our performances. And he said, we could talk about, helping and consulting you for sensory friendly, and Bushnell is equipped to do so. They have a lot of resources. And I did my research, and there's one other sensory friendly ballet, and it's all the way down in East Lyme. So it was kind of just we need to do this. There's a need, there's a gap in our community. And so the Bushnell, Mike, myself, and our production team got together, and we kind of evaluated and determined what needed to happen. And we launched it last year for the Nutcracker and Cinderella, and we're doing it again this year. The goal is for those 2 performances to be fully funded, so that we can offer those tickets free of charge. Because a lot of those families, the inclusivity part is so key, but the accessible part is also, they can't afford, a price tag of $300 to go to a performance, because they have a little bit more expenses than the typical household. So yeah, it's a really rewarding initiative, and something we hope to continue to build. Yeah.
Great. And you said Mike a few times. I'm assuming that's Mike Michaud. No.
It is. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Mike
Great.
Michaud,
That's right.
executive.
Just so the listeners can hear. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Well, that's wonderful.
Another
And
great
I'm
guest to have on your podcast.
and I had absolutely no idea that you were doing any of that with the ballet. So I'm embarrassed to say, but what a wonderful opportunity for people to experience. Not my whole thing, and Bob and I talked about this yesterday. I grew up, having to go to all of my cousins and nieces and nephews and everybody's, what do they call them, recitals and performances, and I don't want to stereotype myself, but I was just like, oh my god, if I have to sit through another one of these, I'm gonna kill myself. It was crazy. But so I love this. That's why I think maybe that's why I was asking you the question about being relevant. I think you've made yourself relevant, and I don't want to say anything about the economy or anything that's happened, to any other ballet companies over the years. But it's like anything, you have to make yourself relevant. It's just or you're not going to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, and build the relationships too. I think that's the other big piece. But I think it's an interesting thing. I'm one of 5 kids. There's 4 girls in my family, and the youngest is a boy. And my dad can probably share your pain of going to hundreds of recitals. But I think a recital is so different than a professional performance, and I think that is such an opportunity for me to say that, recitals are important to a dancer's training, because that is many times their first time on a stage. And that's where they learn and grow their presentation skills, their performance etiquette, responsibility, confidence. But that isn't the same thing as, a professional performance. It's kind of like you start in the minor leagues before you go into the major leagues. It's very similar to, in that retrospect, but you're not alone, Tom. My dad would definitely, and I, he loves dance and he's very supportive, but you're not alone. There's many who have sat, through 3-hour recitals of.
Exactly. Bob, we're down to the 10-minute warning. So is there anything we'd love to chat about?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions. One, is how do you go about choreographing, say, the Nutcracker, which is, it's been out there for 1,000 years. It's been done millions of times. How do you choreograph it so it's somewhat different?
Oh, God, that's a good question. Well, with something like the Nutcracker, to your point, for me, I'm comparing myself as a choreographer to some of the greats like George Balanchine and Marius Petitpas, and some of the originals in terms of the Nutcracker and the choreography and the storyline. I think it's finding a way where, for me, musicality is such a big part of my choreographic process. So how does the music speak to me? What steps do I see within the music? How can I emulate the music on a body? But also, when I decided to take on that very big challenge, because there's a lot of pressure surrounding creating a production like the Nutcracker when there's so many popular renditions, how can we make it relevant to where we are? And as a company that is in West Hartford, the first thing I did was I went to the Noah Webster House and sat down with the executive director at the time and learned a little bit about Noah and his life and the Blueback Speller book. And I incorporated that into our production so that you get a little homage to where we are located, which is West Hartford. So our dancing dolls is Noah Webster, as well as a ballerina who dances with the Blueback Speller. And then looking at, I love the Waltz of the Flowers. It's probably one of my most favorite pieces of music in the score of the Nutcracker. And I was always wanting to see more of that as a kid or being in the Nutcracker. So, I turned our Land of the Sweets into our, the Sugar Plum Fairy isn't the orchestrator or isn't the queen of the kingdom. It's actually the Dewdrop Fairy. So the second act opens up in a flower bed of, budding flowers that can kind of set the seed of, the last piece you see in the Land of the Sweets before the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Cavalier Dance. So I think, to answer your question, it changes for every piece and for every piece of music. But for something like the Nutcracker, it's how can we make our story more original? And then over time, you can make changes as you fit. So right now, our Land of the Sweets is totally different than when I first choreographed it. We now have a macaron. We have Captain Cappuccino and his wife, Miss Macchiato, and he just came back from his time away at sea. So yeah, it's a process, but I think the music for me is definitely the starting point of what steps do I see and how do I see the music and how do I see it on a body? That makes any sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway, Bob, from me just listening, to Stephanie talk is that it changes, that there's change. Well,
Yeah.
that's
And
great.
that's okay. I think it's okay to abandon something that didn't work and decide to, make it better.
Yeah. I'd say one more question, Bob.
Was that? Yeah, I want to. Actually, I'm just going to ask Stephanie. Why don't you give us your web address and how people can reach you? And
so you can visit dance, B as in boy, T as in Tom, C as in cat.org. And on our website will be our full list of our performance season. Our next show is the Nutcracker at the Belding, which is December 1st through the 3rd. We'll visit the Belding later in the spring to present our production of Snow White, which is something we actually did during COVID as a live action film. And then as Bob, mentioned, our Up Close Winter will be in January. And then we also have a really fun community event, One Night in Paris, which you'll get a little taste of an excerpt from American in Paris, maybe a can. It's at the town hall. It includes a lot of cocktails and hors d'oeuvres and just, fun conversation and dancing. And if you want to get in touch with us to partner or to learn more about our educational programs, whether it's, with our community enrichment or our training school, you can send an email to dance@dancebtc.org. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @dancebtc. And, we hope to engage with as many new community members as we can as we continue in our 25th anniversary season this year.
Well, thanks for being on with us today. It was great. Love to have the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me and talking about something that, of course, I love and I'm passionate about. I think I talked probably way too much.
No, not at all. No such thing.
Hey, well, this is Bob Carr with Tom Hickey. And Tom, why don't you take us out?
Thanks for tuning in to On the Scene, again with Stephanie from the Ballet Theater Company in West Hartford. Soon to be statewide, right, Stephanie? There you go. So it all depends on funding, listeners out there. So tune in to us next time, and Bob and I or Ronnie will let you know exactly who our guest is and who we'll be talking to and about. But every time you do, you'll learn something new here on The Scene.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The Scene.
What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.